How much do we really know about our own financial lives? More importantly, how willing are we to face the truth? In this chapter, we dive into the power of honesty, about money, spending, and choices, and the liberation that comes from bringing what's hidden into the light. Because only when we confront reality can we take control, make intentional decisions, and create a life aligned with our values. Facing financial reality, most of us would like to think we understand our financial lives. We check our bank accounts, glance at our bills, and maybe even track expenses sporadically. But true understanding goes deeper than numbers on a screen. It requires honesty, clarity, and a willingness to confront realities we often prefer to ignore. Facing financial reality is the first and most critical step toward freedom. It is the foundation upon which all intentional money decisions are built. The challenge begins with perception. It is easy to live in denial or distortion, telling ourselves that we are doing fine when the truth is more complex. Perhaps we overspend on small habits that add up over time. Maybe we underestimate recurring costs or avoid looking at debts. Sometimes we overestimate our financial security, assuming that a paycheck or savings account automatically equates to stability. These illusions may provide temporary comfort, but they come at a cost. Avoiding the truth keeps us trapped in a cycle of stress, uncertainty, and missed opportunities. Facing financial reality starts with transparency with yourself. This means examining every aspect of your financial life: income, expenses, debts, investments, and obligations. It is not enough to know approximate figures. You must see the full picture. This process can be uncomfortable, even unsettling, because it forces us to confront choices and consequences we may have ignored. But discomfort is a necessary companion on the path to mastery. The moment we confront the numbers honestly, we gain clarity and control. Consider a common scenario: two households earning the same income. One family tracks every expense, evaluates spending habits, and plans for emergencies. The other avoids looking closely at bills, relies on credit cards to cover gaps, and assumes things will work out. On the surface, they appear similar. They have the same paycheck. But when a financial shock occurs, the difference is stark. The first family navigates it with confidence and preparedness, while the second faces stress, anxiety, and potentially long-term consequences. Knowledge and honesty create resilience. Emotional barriers often make this step difficult. Many people feel shame or guilt about their spending habits, debts, or past mistakes. These emotions can lead to avoidance, ignoring statements, delaying tax filings, or refusing to check account balances. Yet, as counterintuitive as it may seem, acknowledging mistakes rather than hiding them reduces stress and empowers decision-making. Financial reality is not about judgment, it is about truth. Once the truth is clear, corrective action becomes possible. Another aspect of facing reality is understanding the difference between needs and wants. Needs are essential: rent, groceries, utilities, insurance, and basic transportation. Wants are discretionary: dining out, luxury items, travel, and entertainment. When we fail to distinguish between the two, we overestimate what we require and underestimate the opportunities for savings, investment, or purposeful spending. Clarity about needs versus wants is a vital lens through which to view all financial decisions. Technology can be a helpful ally. Budgeting apps, automated tracking tools, and financial dashboards make it easier to visualize cash flow, monitor debts, and assess net worth. But tools alone are insufficient without honest engagement. Numbers must be faced actively, not passively. Sitting down regularly to review statements, categorize spending, and evaluate progress transforms abstract figures into actionable knowledge. Finally, facing financial reality is empowering because it creates choice. Once the truth is visible, you can make informed decisions about spending, saving, and investing. You can identify areas for improvement, adjust habits, and create a plan aligned with your life goals. Without honesty, every decision is made in the dark and uncertainty rules. With honesty, you hold the map and each step forward is intentional. In the end, facing financial reality is less about fear and more about freedom. It is the act of lifting the veil, seeing your finances clearly, and accepting where you are without judgment. From this vantage point, you gain control over your life, reduce stress, and create a foundation for choices that reflect your values, priorities, and aspirations. The truth, once embraced, becomes a tool for empowerment rather than a source of anxiety. Breaking the silence. Once we face the reality of our finances, the next step is often the hardest: speaking about it. Money is one of the most taboo topics in many cultures. Conversations about income, debt, spending habits, or savings are often avoided even with the people closest to us. Yet breaking this silence is essential. Transparency, both with ourselves and with those we trust, can transform stress into clarity, confusion into strategy, and isolation into partnership. Silence around money can take many forms. In families, one partner may hide debts or overspending from the other, fearing judgment or conflict. Friends may avoid discussing financial challenges, pretending everything is fine while privately struggling. Even individuals may avoid journaling or reviewing accounts honestly, creating a private bubble of uncertainty. This silence, while seemingly protective, actually amplifies anxiety. When we refuse to acknowledge or discuss money, we lose control over it. Unspoken truths grow, creating hidden pressure that eventually surfaces in stress, arguments, or missed opportunities. Breaking the silence begins with courage. It requires acknowledging that honesty may feel uncomfortable, that it may bring initial discomfort, and that it may even spark conflict. But that discomfort is temporary, while the benefits are lasting. Open conversations invite clarity. For couples, discussing finances together builds trust and prevents misunderstandings. Sharing openly about income, debts, and spending habits allows both partners to make informed decisions, set realistic goals, and align priorities. Transparency becomes a bridge rather than a battlefield. There are practical ways to start. Begin small. Set aside dedicated time to review budgets together, discuss upcoming expenses, or talk about financial goals. Frame the conversation around shared values and common objectives rather than blame or judgment. For example, instead of saying, "You spend too much on coffee," try, "Let's review our spending to see if we can allocate more toward our vacation fund." The focus shifts from criticism to collaboration. Breaking the silence also extends beyond personal relationships. Mentors, financial advisors, or trusted friends can provide perspective, advice, and accountability. Asking for guidance does not indicate weakness. It demonstrates responsibility. Sharing openly with the right people can uncover blind spots, challenge assumptions, and inspire new strategies for managing money more effectively. Another layer involves confronting cultural taboos. Many societies attach shame or status to wealth, income, or financial mismanagement. We are conditioned to hide our struggles and downplay our successes. Recognizing these cultural pressures allows us to choose differently. Breaking the silence is a form of empowerment. It reclaims agency over our financial narrative and removes the unnecessary burden of secrecy. Transparency also promotes intentionality. When we verbalize goals, track progress, and discuss challenges openly, we create accountability. The process of articulating our financial situation brings awareness to patterns that might have gone unnoticed. We begin to see where habits serve us and where they undermine our objectives. What was once hidden in shadow comes into the light, offering clarity and actionable insight. Ultimately, breaking the silence transforms money from a source of anxiety into a tool for freedom. Silence isolates, openness connects. Fear keeps us reactive. Honesty empowers us to act intentionally. By confronting financial truths openly, we gain control, build trust in relationships, and lay the groundwork for choices that reflect our values rather than society's expectations. In the end, breaking the silence is not a one-time conversation. It is an ongoing practice. It requires regular check-ins, honest reflection, and the courage to speak and listen. But the rewards are profound: reduced stress, stronger relationships, and the ability to navigate life with confidence and clarity. Money, once shrouded in secrecy, becomes a servant to our goals rather than a master of our emotions. Identifying habits and patterns. Once we begin to speak openly about money, the next essential step is reflection, recognizing the habits and patterns that shape our financial lives. Most of us operate on autopilot, making daily choices influenced by routines, emotions, and subconscious beliefs. Spending, saving, investing, these decisions are rarely as rational as we like to think. To gain control, we must first bring them into conscious awareness. Habits are powerful because they operate silently. Small, seemingly insignificant behaviors, buying a coffee every morning, ordering takeout several nights a week, impulsively purchasing items online, accumulate over time into substantial financial impact. Individually, they feel minor. Collectively, they shape outcomes. Without careful examination, these patterns remain hidden, and we often wonder why money feels scarce or why goals remain out of reach despite effort. Patterns are more than habits. They are the emotional and psychological loops that drive behavior. Why do we spend when stressed, bored, or seeking validation? Why do we avoid saving, even when we understand its importance? Why do we overextend ourselves to maintain appearances? These recurring responses reveal much about our relationship with money. They are often shaped by early experiences, cultural messaging, and social comparison. Recognizing them is crucial because patterns, once identified, can be changed. A practical starting point is tracking. Keeping a record of expenses over weeks or months illuminates where money flows and highlights unseen habits. Categorizing spending into essentials, discretionary, and aspirational can reveal blind spots, those areas where we spend without noticing, often driven by emotion rather than necessity. Tracking not only provides insight but also introduces accountability. Numbers, when laid bare, tell a story that memory alone cannot capture. Emotional triggers are particularly important to identify. Many spending behaviors are not about need, but about feelings. Retail therapy, subscription services, dining out for comfort, or excessive entertainment often serve as coping mechanisms. Awareness allows us to interrupt these automatic responses, replacing them with intentional choices that align with our values and goals. For example, recognizing that a recurring impulse to buy clothes stems from stress rather than need opens the door to healthier alternatives: a walk, conversation, or creative activity. Another layer of pattern recognition involves mindset. Do we view money as scarce or abundant? Are we optimistic or fearful about financial risk? Do we associate spending with reward or guilt? Our beliefs profoundly influence behaviors. Patterns often repeat because they are reinforced by these underlying mindsets. Changing the mindset can therefore transform the habits that follow, creating a more intentional, empowered approach to money. Identifying habits and patterns also extends to income and work. How do we earn? Are we trading time for money in ways that serve our long-term goals, or are we stuck in routines that limit growth? Do we diversify income streams or rely solely on a single source? Recognizing these patterns helps us see opportunities for adjustment, optimization, and alignment with values. Importantly, this step is not about judgment. The goal is not to criticize past choices, but to understand them. By identifying habits and patterns, we illuminate the forces that have shaped our financial life, creating the foundation for conscious change. Awareness is the prerequisite for empowerment. Once patterns are visible, we can redesign routines, replace unhelpful behaviors, and reinforce habits that support our goals and well-being. Ultimately, understanding habits and patterns transforms money from a source of mystery into a domain of mastery. We move from reactive behavior, spending impulsively, avoiding decisions, or following outdated routines, to proactive management, aligning actions with intentions. Money becomes a tool rather than a burden, and we gain the freedom to make choices that reflect our true priorities. Small steps toward transparency. Transparency, especially about finances, can feel overwhelming at first. The idea of sharing debts, spending habits, or long-term goals can trigger anxiety or shame, but it doesn't have to be all or nothing. The path to openness begins with small, intentional steps that gradually build clarity, confidence, and trust. Each step, no matter how minor, is a move away from secrecy and toward empowerment. The first step is self-clarity. Before we can share with others, we must understand our own situation. This means reviewing income, expenses, debts, savings, and financial goals. Tools like budgeting apps, spreadsheets, or journals make this process tangible. By seeing the full picture, we create a foundation of knowledge that allows us to speak confidently and accurately. Clarity also reduces anxiety. It is far easier to engage in conversation when we are grounded in facts rather than vague assumptions or worry. Next comes selective sharing. Transparency does not require announcing every detail to the world. Begin with someone you trust, a partner, a mentor, or a financial advisor. Start with areas that feel manageable. For instance, sharing a budget overview or discussing a specific goal like saving for a vacation or paying off a credit card creates a safe space to practice honesty. Small, positive experiences with transparency build confidence, showing that openness rarely results in judgment and often strengthens relationships. Regular communication is another key step. Transparency is not a one-time conversation, it is a habit. Scheduling consistent discussions about finances, whether weekly or monthly, normalizes openness. Partners, for example, can review spending together, set joint goals, and adjust priorities as circumstances change. Regular check-ins prevent misunderstandings, ensure alignment, and make financial conversations a routine part of life rather than a rare, anxiety-inducing event. Documentation also reinforces transparency. Maintaining clear records of expenses, debts, and goals not only helps in practical management, but provides a concrete basis for conversation. When numbers are visible, discussions are factual rather than emotional, reducing conflict and increasing cooperation. Transparency is most effective when it is verifiable and consistent, turning abstract concerns into actionable insight. Another practical step is incremental disclosure. If discussing all finances at once feels daunting, start with one category at a time. Perhaps begin with discretionary spending, then move to saving strategies, and finally tackle debts. Breaking the process into manageable pieces prevents overwhelm and allows both parties to absorb information, ask questions, and engage thoughtfully. Gradually, what once felt intimidating becomes natural and comfortable. Emotional support is essential throughout this process. Transparency requires vulnerability, which can stir fear or defensiveness. Remind yourself that openness is not a weakness, it is a strength. Celebrate small victories, like successfully sharing a budget or discussing financial goals without conflict. Over time, these successes reinforce the value of honesty, making it easier to continue and expand transparency. Lastly, transparency allows for proactive planning. Once finances are visible and shared, decisions can be intentional. Couples can align spending with values, families can plan for education or emergencies, and individuals can create strategies for debt repayment or investment. Hidden finances create reactive lives, openness creates choice, empowerment, and alignment with long-term goals. The power of small steps toward transparency lies in their cumulative effect. Each act of honesty, no matter how minor, reduces fear, builds trust, and fosters clarity. Over time, these steps transform the relationship we have with money, from one of secrecy, stress, and avoidance to one of openness, control, and intentionality. Transparency, practiced patiently and consistently, is not just a tool for financial health. It is a pathway to freedom, confidence, and a life aligned with what truly matters. Aligning money with values. Transparency is not an end in itself. It is a gateway. Once we see our finances clearly and share them honestly, the next step is to align our money with our values. This is where true freedom begins. Money, once a source of stress or secrecy, becomes a tool for intentional living, allowing us to invest in what matters most rather than reacting to external pressures or societal expectations. Alignment begins with reflection. What do we truly value in life? Family, health, personal growth, creativity, community, adventure. Values are unique to each person. Often, we spend without considering these priorities, driven by habit, convenience, or the desire to keep up with others. By examining our financial choices through the lens of values, we can identify areas where spending supports meaning and areas where it detracts from it. This simple shift transforms transactions into statements about who we are and what we care about. Next comes evaluation of spending. Every dollar spent is a vote for something. Are we investing in experiences, relationships, and growth, or are we buying temporary satisfaction that fades quickly? Tracking expenses with values in mind highlights mismatches between intentions and behavior. Perhaps we claim to value health, but spend most of our free time and money on sedentary entertainment. Or we value learning, but rarely allocate funds to courses, books, or workshops. Awareness allows us to redirect resources toward priorities that truly nourish us. Savings and investments can also reflect values. For example, someone who prioritizes security may focus on building an emergency fund, while someone who values adventure might allocate funds for travel or personal projects. Aligning money with values is not about rigid budgeting or deprivation. It is about conscious choice. Every financial decision becomes an expression of personal priorities, ensuring that resources serve life goals rather than just filling routine gaps. Debt management is another critical aspect. High-interest debts or obligations that conflict with values can erode both financial and emotional freedom. Aligning money with values means developing a plan to reduce or eliminate debt in a way that preserves well-being and supports long-term priorities. Paying off debt is not merely a financial goal, it is an act of reclaiming agency over time, energy, and peace of mind. Intentional giving is also part of alignment. Money can support causes, communities, or people that reflect our values. Philanthropy, charitable donations, or simply helping friends and family can transform money from a static resource into a living expression of purpose. Giving with intention strengthens the sense that financial resources are not just a personal tool, but a means to create positive impact in the world. Finally, ongoing reflection and adjustment ensure alignment remains dynamic. Life changes, values evolve, and priorities shift. Regularly revisiting financial choices in the context of current values allows us to remain intentional. It prevents slipping into autopilot, where habits, convenience, or social pressure dictate spending. Alignment is not a one-time fix. It is a practice, a mindset, and a commitment to intentional living. When money is aligned with values, it ceases to be a source of anxiety and becomes a source of empowerment. Each decision reinforces identity, strengthens relationships, and supports long-term fulfillment. Spending, saving, and investing are no longer arbitrary. They are deliberate, thoughtful acts that reflect what we care about most. Transparency, honesty, and reflection converge to create a life where financial choices are consistent with personal meaning. In the end, aligning money with values completes the journey begun with facing reality and breaking silence. We move from fear, avoidance, and secrecy to clarity, intentionality, and purpose. Money becomes a servant to our life goals, not a master dictating our happiness. By living in alignment, we discover that financial freedom is not just the absence of stress. It is the presence of choice, integrity, and a life fully engaged with what truly matters. That wraps up getting it out in the open. We've seen how honesty, transparency, and understanding our financial realities empower us to take control and live intentionally. Next, in The American Dream on a Shoestring, we'll explore how ordinary people can achieve extraordinary goals, live well within their means, and pursue freedom and fulfillment without following society's high-cost blueprint.